This is an FOU Studios podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Geek XP. It's time to level up with some GXP. I'm your show host, Peter the Geek. With me today, I have #KillJosh,
star of stage and speaker,
and Bill Murray.
That's my name.
That's what we call her. I'm really excited about our guest today. He's a really good friend of mine. He was a tank commander. He has training in human resources. He has NCO. He was an infantryman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome retired Staff Sergeant Nathan Bozile. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Woo,
thank you for coming on.
Good to be here.
Of course, of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Nathan.
Well, like you said, I was in the Army for most of my adult life. Started out on tanks and then also transitioned into some transportation, infantry, human resources, did a few different things over the course of 17 years before I medically retired a couple years ago. Huge lifelong geek. Specifically started playing on D&D with about 5 or 6 years old. After the cartoon came out, my brother got an AD&D second edition book, and I started playing there. Got into things like BattleTech and Magic the Gathering growing up in the 90s when geek was really picking up. Still love, of course, Star Wars. Star Wars was huge as a kid. And just all kinds of geek stuff. I love geek stuff, comics, movies,
Awesome.
Pokemon, everything. And now I got kids, and I'm
Pokemon.
getting to pass that on and get introduced to the new stuff as well.
Hell yeah.
Baby geeks.
Pass it along.
Yeah.
Boy, D&D
They are.
by 5 or 6. That is starting young.
Right?
Well, I mean, Kai is what, 9?
He's 11.
He's 11, sorry.
He's 11. He was 9 when you met him, I think, maybe.
That's probably what it was, yeah.
Yeah, he's 11, and he's going to be running his first D&D campaign on Tuesday.
That's friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
that's
and
so
I just
cool.
got him as a Valentine's Day gift, more or less, his first, the 5th Ed Player's Handbook. So he has his first official
Oh.
gaming book that is
Cool,
his
Dad.
own that he can run with.
That's so cool. Yay, that's so cool. Well, this is actually a pretty good segue at this point because I think it's just about time to geek out! That's right. So, Nathan, what are we geeking out about today?
Star Wars, specifically the Grand Army of the Republic, more specifically Clone Troopers.
Ooh.
And my favorite aspect of them were the Republic Commando novels by Karen Travis.
Oh, okay. You see, they're no longer canonical, which kind of sucks. I started reading one of them, Hard Contact, and they're good. It's kind of weird because they're not canonical anymore. So like you're reading about things and you're like, well, that's not what happened anymore. But they're really good reads. Why do you like them so much, Nathan?
So Karen Travis is a sci-fi author, obviously, and she's done some things besides Star Wars. If you read her biography a little bit, she was in the British Royal Navy, so she has a background in military life, and she did such a great job of capturing the camaraderie and everything, lifestyle of military personnel. When I started reading it right away, I immediately felt like whoever's writing this gets it. They get military life. They get the brotherhood. She did such an amazing job of not only capturing that, but making each clone in the book, even some of the basic quote unquote regular clones, the whites, I think they call the commandos and
Right.
ARC troopers call them, individuals, which comes across really well in the novel form. They all have unique names, and their indoctrination into Mandalorian heritage through their training NCOs that Django brings in.
Yeah.
She does such an amazing job with all that. It's such a gritty, realistic look at warfare in the Star Wars universe that you don't get anywhere else with the movies or even the show as well, I don't think.
Right. Well, I mean, the show, it's a kids show, so like it almost it almost hurts that they can't go as dark as they can. I didn't realize, I hadn't gotten to that point actually, I guess, that the novel they call them whites because in the show they made it shinies because your armor's shiny still. It's not been stuffed up.
Or I thought that was just the general name for a rookie.
Well, it's shinies are the general name for a rookie now.
Right,
It is,
right.
yeah,
But they, some of the commanders had specific colored patterns on their helmets and things like
Right.
that. Is that what the whites it was referring to? They just have like your standard issue white clone armor.
That and because the novels, if you haven't read them, focus not primarily on the nulls, the ARC ARC troopers, and just the Republic commandos in general, which have higher training, more advanced training than the regular whites or shinies, as they call them. And they also often have black armor or the kamas, the samurai-looking leg stuff on their armors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whites and shiny kind of just refers to basic Qatar and issue armor.
Got it. Okay.
This is good. This is filling me in. I have no idea what these books are, and I'm now very intrigued.
Oh, they're really good books, and it's an interesting it's interesting that it's almost like it's not going against the TV show, but like the TV show brings in different elements that obviously the books did not, because the TV show is a little bit more more polished around soft edges. Even though, it's still like so many episodes center around the clones.
But the books go there. The books get serious, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, they do. It's fascinating. I've only just started reading one, but yeah. There's a series of episodes in the Clone Wars TV show called Darkness on Umbara. Do you remember that one?
I do indeed. That's a very distinct one in my memory. Not only because of the Jedi General that goes evil and starts slaying clone troopers, but some of the military, as a military background, it was at time it was one of the more difficult to watch episodes, just from the tactics and stuff and such they used, the way they did things.
Please go into depth on that. I would love to hear about that.
We want to know.
Well, first they. When they drop in the planet and they drop in within range of the enemy's artillery, is just a terrible idea to start off with. Generally, what you would do with a drop, because airdrops are imperfect, you don't necessarily land right on where you're supposed to, and so if you're looking at real world airborne units parachuting in, they can be scattered. For the D-Day invasion, Normandy,
right?
That happened a lot. We had troops scattered all across Europe. There were 1s, 2s, 4s, and 5s groups of guys that were by themselves and had to figure out, regroup and try to find their way to friendly forces. So you would drop outside the range of the enemy's artillery, form up. So you make sure you're in a formation and you're ready to go, because you don't want to be doing anything under fire except fighting back. And then assess the situation on the ground, verify the military intelligence, because military intelligence is an acronym. It's not intelligent. It's very rare that it's accurate to any degree, to be honest. It's worse than the weather. So you form up. And then,
Worse than the weather.
That's a great metaphor there.
Weather reports. I mean, it's worse than it's less accurate than weather reports. And you'd send out. They should have sent out scouts to scout out the scout.
So really quickly, I do want to try to make sure that we know what actually happens before we get too in depth of what should have happened. In the episode, it's a drop scenario. They're talking about how they have to take this hill.
So it's D-Day.
It's very similar to D-Day, and so they have the low altitude transport vehicles, and they're flying in, and the first thing they do is drop off a bunch of those little RT walkers, and they run thing. There's explosions happening all around them. They take out these big cannons, and all the other troops run up, running, all this gunfire, and they finally end up taking the hill. I think they had to do a bombing run on it too. Like it was very exciting to watch.
They were on Felucia, right? Or
no, Umbara. We're talking about it was for the TV show Darkness on Umbara. It's a 4-episode series with General Pong Krell, and it's a really, really cool arc. It's probably my favorite episode series of the show. Like, it's fascinating, but when you watch it, Nathan's pointing out a lot of good things. They did not use really good tactics for it. So
and that was part of the point of the episode as well, was that the clones kept saying, actually, we've got training telling us to do it this way, and the general kept saying, no, you're going to follow my orders.
Except this initial airdrop was supposed to, this was the big plan. it was Anakin's troops, and Obi-Wan's been coordinating, and they're like, this is the plan. We're gonna do this, and it's what I described: just dropping, running, everything, all these explosions. Like they were within range, they were getting shot down immediately because there were already anti-air things coming up at them, and like it was a very messy, very destructive battle. So you're saying that they should have landed a lot farther away.
Right, and honestly, if you want to talk about because the books and they right off the bat at the beginning of the first book that you're reading, the Battle of Geonosis, you see how a lot of the they lose a lot of commandos up front because the commandos are not utilized properly. Commandos aren't infantry; they're not shock troops. They're not in the main battle kind of uses. They do other things like espionage and demolitions and asset denial. So, assuming there was any time to prep the battlefield for Umbara, what they should have done is dropped a commando squad or two in a week or so out, and had them sneak in, plant charges on the anti-aircraft, below the anti-aircraft, and then as you're preparing, as your bombers are coming in, right before they hit range of the anti-aircraft, the commandos blow the anti-armor emplacements. Then your aircraft can bomb the target into rubble, and then while you're dropping your infantry and your armor, whatever else you have for land units outside of range of the artillery. So then your aircraft has destroyed the artillery, and then you can move in safer. So it's a lot of people think of just combat situations, like it's not just I'm shooting this guy. There's a lot of it's more chess-like or Go, if you want to talk Sun Tzu. It's not as direct as a lot of people think. Battlefield planning, the idea you want to match strategy-wise your unit, like you want a commando against an anti-aircraft, and you want an aircraft against artillery.
You don't want people to die, essentially. You want to win. You do not want you to lose your comrades.
Right.
It's so
minimizing risk.
It's so interesting because the battle tactic you just described, in my opinion, would have made an even more interesting episode.
Real quick, I didn't see the episode. Do they lose said battle?
They end up winning.
Yeah. Okay, I was curious to see where it went with this whole just throw them in there.
Yeah, it's a 4-episode arc, and it's the good guys. The good guys prevail. It's a kids TV show.
It is still Star Wars.
It is still Star Wars. It's still a kids show.
I'd say they win the way they win every battle in the cartoon is by a lot of clone troopers dying needlessly. Is how they win every battle.
Stormtroopers, man.
That's a really good point. There's when you watch the TV show, a lot of clones die. Like, granted, there are moments that shit goes wrong, and people are gonna die when shit goes wrong. Yeah. But this battle sticks out to me as such a prominent one because it's fun to watch. But clearly, the battle tactics were poor. Again, what you just described would have been so interesting.
Right?
Are you kidding?
We don't want to lose these stormtroopers, even though they're clones. They do have different thoughts and things going on. They're people too.
They are, and
they're people too.
Those 4 episodes do a better job than anything else of personifying clones, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the one that has a guy named Hardcase. He's all about big guns. Rex and Fives are both in it because ARC troopers work alone. There's Tup. There all these Dogma, who's all about there's so many interesting.
They actually
characters.
have names.
They actually have names. Yeah.
Cool.
It's very cool. And Echo dies in that. Spoiler, I guess, but Echo dies in it. But it's a moment that I guess I'm geeking out a little bit about story now. People complained in The Last Jedi that Admiral Akbar died and they didn't do anything. It was just he died. But that's how it happens sometimes. It's
Can't focus on it.
Yeah, he's dead. We have to move on. And Echo died that way. It was Echo, no! And then they had to move on because the battle was still raging.
Yep.
Yeah, not everybody gets a Dobby moment. We can't just sit there and sob over Dobby. Yeah. We gotta move on.
Yeah.
Something else I liked in that episode was the part where two of the clone troopers steal those Umbaran flying bubble things.
Yeah, they fire the fighter.
And how ridiculous kind of the scene is. Mm-hmm. That's accurate. I can just say on a mission where another buddy and I had been sent especially to steal some kind of enemy aircraft, it would have to be probably a helicopter or something. Yeah, it would be that stooge of happening, and it would be hilarious and dangerous all at the same time. And that's a very common thing, and you see that a lot in the novels too. There's a lot of humor
Okay.
Have you met Fee yet, Peter?
No, I haven't met Fee yet.
Okay, Fee is one of the main guys, and he's probably my favorite commando in the series. And he and I have a lot of parallels
Okay.
in our life.
Be interested
He's
to-
he's the funny guy. He's also all hua, as we call it. If you go, you don't want to, you never go full hua as a joke in the army, which means you're like way too all into being a soldier.
Oh,
with
okay.
some people think
Okay.
you're
know one of those
way
guys.
too into it, way, kind of a thing. So he is full hua. He's the funny guy, but he's also really grim in his own head and everything. And he, spoiler, gets injured, massive head injury from an explosion,
Oh no.
and he almost gets he is going to be put down in a Republic hospital because he's a unit, not a person, and he couldn't survive on life support.
Ooh,
So
That's weird.
that's heavy.
Right?
it's heavy. And then his training NCO, Cal Scarata, who's one of the Mandalorians Django brings in, they rescue him and they take him back to Mandalore, and they start healing him with one of their Jedi's, Jusic, I want to say,
Okay.
who goes native with the Mandalorians eventually. But he starts healing him, and then there's this female Mandalorian that Cal's friends with who comes, and she falls in love with him, and she's like fixing him and teaching him to walk properly and talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And not to get into details, but I had a pretty serious head injury, and it's affected a little bit of my motor skills, mostly my speech and memory a bit. And after I got injured, a few years after that's when I met my current wife, and I wouldn't get by without her. We joked that her plan is she's made me dependent on her, so I can't leave.
Oh.
And it's accurate, but I think it's malicious to
Oh.
take it out. So I really like that character Fee in the books because, it's another thing that's very true to life. You get a lot of these archetype characters in the real military. You have those types of guys. You have the shammer guy. You have the lifer. You have the dude in it for college. You've got the player guys. You've got the crazy powerlifting guys that work out all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of these different personalities that you see repeatedly, different types, and you see that a lot of these types represented in the clone books by Karen Travis. They're just really, really well done. Like, you can tell she spent some serious time in the military. You know what she's talking about in that regard.
Well, I mean, I feel like if you're going to write about commandos and troopers and stuff like that, it's almost a prerequisite that you.
Was she actually in the military?
Yeah,
The
yeah. He
writer?
was saying, yeah, she was
that's
the
super
British
cool.
military. You said
British Royal Navy.
British Royal Navy. So yeah, I mean,
So she's got a good background.
I mean, yeah, and technically, when you look at all of the spacebound stuff that happens, it's technically the Navy. Like, it's the Space Navy.
Yep.
Yeah, they're the Space Navy.
I
Yeah.
never thought about it that way. Actually, that's kind of cool to think about. Space Navy.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's why there are so many like mooring and ship terms based around spaceships.
Oh yeah, this is like this is a blow my mind moment. Just having a
totally.
thought back on all the space things I watch. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, it's ocean, black ocean with stars.
Oh
Cool.
yeah, and it's like an awesome fusion of like big battleships with submarines, because if something goes wrong in a submarine, it's water. If something goes wrong in space, there's a vacuum.
It's a
So,
vacuum,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Destroyer. There's destroyer with typical wet navies. There's destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, and then in the Star Destroyer,
Yeah.
there are crew like
They've got frigates.
They get, yeah.
the frigates,
They've got it all.
Yeah.
How have I not figured this out before?
the Calamaran cruisers. They make all the ship build. It's definitely they use when you read some sci-fi series, if they have terrain, if they have stuff on planets as well as space, they'll talk about wet navy and navy. Usually they'll refer to it, and the wet navy is actual ships in the water. You'll see that later on in the series a little bit, Peter, when you read that book.
Oh yeah. It's I do want to finish them. I've been bouncing in between non-canonical and canonical books because I have to make sure I'm catching up on the real stuff.
Yeah, but there's such an
Right.
ocean of non-canonical books now.
It's such an ocean. It's wonderful.
It is tough.
So
It's
many
tough.
ocean metaphors.
a lot of water we're talking about right now.
Water.
Yeah. My brain was primed to give that a little analogy. Yep.
All right, so keep going on about clones.
Yeah.
I was gonna say what. Oh, go ahead. No, go for it.
No.
I was gonna say, what is is your interest mainly in like kind of the tactics that they use in these storylines, or was there you just find the idea of that kind of clone army coming in at the end as like a trump card played in Attack of the Clones. Is it that the storyline of the origin of the clones that gets you kind of excited about it as well?
To me, it's how relatable it is to me from my experience, and the fact that you see so often with different universes or licenses or whatever you want to call it, they'll try to get into the workings of a military, and it's so off. You know, things are so wrong, and the accuracy of how things work. I weep for the lack of canon for the Republic Commando series because they get into things that work so well with the whole storyline of the movies. Because, you know, we all know, spoiler, Darth Sidious planned it all, right?
Yeah.
Both
Wait,
what? I know. Sorry, you haven't seen any of the movies. But when you look at how everything works out, and they really get behind the scenes of the war aspect in the series, the fact that the Jedis have no military training at all, and then they're just given an army, and they're like, "Here, your generals, run it," and they do a terrible job. And despite the fact that the war drags on for years, I forget exactly how long. Peter, you know this.
I mean, I think it's I don't know off the top of my head anymore. It's got. I mean, it's at least 5 because if it's not 5, it's 10.
Yeah, I thought it was 10 years.
Yeah, that's why I was hemming and hawing because I don't remember how much time takes place in between episodes 2 and 3 off the top of my head.
Is there ever any mention of any Jedis getting officer training or training in military tactics during that time, or any effort to put together some type of school?
I mean,
I'm going to say no.
There's no talk of it.
I mean, you should be able to infer it, technically.
So
they should.
But, you know...
Right. So the Jedi Council gets together and feels their next move out.
Now that you mention that, though, there's only one episode in the Clone Wars that makes me think about is one of the season 3 episodes when they're going through Domino Squad, and there's two of the Camino trainers, and then Shakti, who is watching over the training of the clones, but she doesn't do anything about the training. She's just overseeing it all as the Jedi. She's also like just more of a liaison rather than an actual like military leader presence.
So they don't like actually lead. They're just there to make sure, like they're like the Eagles in Lord of the Rings. They just make sure it happens occasionally.
But then you watch Anakin take an entire battalion of clones, like leading the way, granted, but it's more like, all right, shoot things. I'm gonna go do this stuff, and like that's his battle plan.
Sounds like Anakin.
I mean,
that is something I noticed with Anakin, is that basically every episode that centers around his units is it involves the clones go distract by getting shot, and then he goes and does something cool and heroic, and gets to do a neat pose, and then his lightsaber goes off, and they won, and there's a bunch of dead clones,
and the audience goes, "Yeah,
yeah." I mean, you're right. Yeah. A lot of dead clones.
I'm really feeling for clones right now.
I think 6 or 7 year old me would be really pissed at grown up me for being this maybe jaded or disenfranchised. But as having been in the military, it's hard for me to watch how a lot of those Jedis run the units and the battles so poorly. I
mean, thinking about, because in Geonosis, Mace Windu comes off of the lat. And he runs out, and one of the commanders goes, "We have a full squad for you." And then you just see them running across an open field.
Oh,
no sneaking.
Oh no!
Terrible. It's terrible how they run their battles. They totally. One thing that I expect since I was in armor, one thing I noticed is how they misuse armor or don't use it. I was one of the first episodes where there's that wall of turrets. And then there's that those super tanks that come out.
Wasn't it the
Ahsoka and the other Padawan have to go in and kill it from the inside?
Yeah. This is the second battle of Geonosis. Yeah.
Right, there you go. And so they have They have two or three super tanks coming at them across a bridge that nothing's hurting. So they're like, just keep sending the infantry at them until have the infantry charge the turret wall with their rifles against. And the Republic has walkers out the wazoo, and even tanks and things that fly.
Yeah.
And no, their answer is always throw infantry at it, and it's insane. It's terrible. There's no tactics, no thought at all, and they get into that in the books, the clones, the commandos in particular, are always griping about the tactics. They compare some of the Jedi's, which ones are good, which ones are bad. The one master on the the council with the cone,
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
they hate him. Every clone hates that guy. He's a terrible leader. Also, he's allowed to have a family. So once clones start seeing what civilian life exists, and then they can relate to the Jedi's with no attachment, but then this guy gets to have a family, and he's a terrible leader.
That's not fair.
In defense of Ki-Adi-Mundi,
okay,
he was helping repopulate his species, which was completely separate. Like, he was one of the only Jedi who was allowed to do that because his species was endangered.
All right.
Let me tell you,
it's not canonical now because in the TV show they made him a better leader. I guess that you don't really see him being a leader. I guess you just kind of see him hacking through droids. So I guess
interesting to hear they have like opinions of these like Jedi characters, which I guess I would have never thought like stormtroopers have opinions.
But you wouldn't think about it.
Leaders.
But it's totally true. Like, I mean, in school you always had like, oh, I like that teacher, I don't like that teacher.
Exactly.
To hear them have that conversation like that cool like locker room stormtrooper talk that I just never thought about, which is kind of interesting.
There was a video game series like the Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. One of my favorite things in that game was the stormtroopers would have conversations if you listened to them, and they were always about that banal nonsense kind of stuff.
Just that regular, because all you see in the movies is them just like kind of like shooting the shit, talking gently about what they're actually doing. Like, it's like they're doing currently.
Rogue One had a beautiful moment, like two troopers walking around. Did you hear they phased out the T-16? Like,
right?
That's all it needed to be. It was so brilliant.
In the first film, when Obi-Wan is turning off the tractor beam,
and
the one stormtrooper's like, "Hey, look, you hear that alarm going off? It's probably just another drill." I've literally had that conversation. I had that exact conversation on duty because you still respond the same way. Like, their job, they were guarding that. Everyone assumes like, oh, look at those dumb stormtroopers. No, they're assigned to guard that thing. They didn't see Obi-Wan behind them because he's a Jedi and one of the best Jedis ever. And so the alarm goes off. They're like, oh, something's going on, but we're going to keep doing what we're supposed to. They were doing that was perfect soldiering right there on their part.
Yeah, you can't stop guarding your post because of that.
Right.
Well, I mean, and he did use the sound thing, so they would just look a different direction. And it's like, wait, what was that? But it could be anything. It's probably nothing. It's like maybe that was a pipe burst. Maybe that was an air system.
It's a good point to say that he's one of the best Jedis ever.
Yeah.
So it's not that the stormtroopers were easily duped. It's that he was a badass Jedi that duped them.
Right.
Even in his 80s or wherever he was.
Right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to talk about how one of the things that even the rank and file troops notice in the novels is the and I don't know how canonical it is anymore, but there was all these reports that the Separatists had millions they had a number bigger than trillions, I think, of droids supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, they're manufactured, so technically there's there's never supposed to be a definitive number because they just keep making
them.
Mm-hmm.
And the troops are talking about where are all these droids that we're supposed to be seeing, and because of these false reports, which again, spoiler, Palpatine is manipulating.
Wait, what?
Right. It allows him to control the deployment of the GAR throughout the war, which is done in a very inefficient, stupid manner, to drag the war out. But the troops, rank and file they are not as dumb as people might think, and they notice that why are we on this planet? Why are we spread out all over? Why don't we just try? They keep talking about why don't we just go for the capital planets of the Separatists, their head planet, their home worlds, their Coruscant, whichever that may be, because it's a confederacy.
Yeah,
I remember Palpatine always gives some, he's always something tactics, because at this point the Jedi are not lazy, but they're complacent, they're arrogant, and they're out of touch. Well, and so they fall for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talking about the way the troops are moving and coming back to Darkness on Umbara. That's one of the things General Krell does is literally just move forward, advance in a straight line. And one of the only things that hits my head is you move faster on roads than you do through the wilderness, right?
Right.
So,
but
like in that episode, one of the main arguing points was he wanted them to walk down the road to the capital of Umbara, where they were, or to this depot. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, okay, you're moving faster. I get like they didn't realize there were going to be mines there. They started minesweeping.
It's a road. People use
I get it. I totally get it. But I mean, they are at like it's a balance of like they are at war. They've been ambushed no matter what, so you know you're going to go to attack. Are you going to sacrifice your speed? Like what are the pros and cons of using the roads? I guess.
So a big whenever you're planning any kind of mission with the military, and I'm talking from going on a fitness run, assaulting a castle, because there's castles nowadays, but or even if you're like even like a fun day, like if you take your platoon, if you're gonna take your platoon out to the lake and go grill and swim, you do what's called a safety assessment first. So the big thing for a safety assessment that the application here in this case, because there's the weird woods.
Yeah.
There's the things that live underground that were attacking people.
Right.
And there's the roads. Is you would base it on what's the likelihood of engagement. So you can have like enemy contact unlikely, enemy contact possible, and then any enemy contact likely, and then currently in enemy contact you could have troops somewhere. So in Umbara, I would say it's likely because they've been getting attacked and ambushed, and it was an ongoing battle. What would have made sense there again, something that people don't think about a lot with military tactics, is scouts. They should have sent out scouts, which would have been our small units, small groups of troops, on foot, more stealthier generally, and they should have been going out and scouting the path, and they would have moved through the trees to begin with, because you don't want to be seen. So they would sacrifice speed for lower visibility to start with, and they would have scouted out. They could have discovered some of the mines or the ambushes that were coming, and then they possibly could have moved their main force on the road at high speed if they know where the enemy is, to move the contact and then engage. But to just walk everyone down the road ever, the possibility of contact is ridiculous. It's a terrible idea.
I figured, but I knew there had to be I just figured there had to be at least some reason to be like, well, no, we can do that because
I'm thinking Lieutenant Dan in that moment where they're walking down the road and they check everything in the hole.
The forearm guy. What was the
Pong Krell?
What was the name of it?
Krell.
Krell had I think that episode series, how Krell ran that unit, which was Anakin's, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah,
Anakin's?
it was the 501st.
What he did with the 501st, I think, is very good parallel to what Palpatine was doing with the Republic during the war. Deliberately running them poorly, wearing them down, attrition, and then slowly amping up the brutality and the heavy-handedness, and then finally just started killing people. I mean, that's basically what Palpatine did with the Republic after he took over. It's kind of a parallel.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to a question I had. So how does that do you think that the way he ran his military changed once it became like the Galactic Empire? Because I think I've read a couple articles about like the assault on Hoth, for example, and they said that was kind of like a botched operation. Basically, they said like if they had like sent in maybe commandos for sabotage before the Republic knew they were there, like they said the Empire should have won the war that day, but they didn't because they handled the operation so poorly.
The Empire should have won the war that day.
Like that's what they were saying. Like
it's a weird statement.
The Rebellion had plot armor. Is the big difference. So I think that yes, the way Palpatine had his military ran his military was much different after he took over the Republic and made it the Empire, because he was fighting to win at this point. So he was he had stopped he wasn't playing two sides anymore. He was just trying to eliminate the rebellion. The disadvantages the Empire were looking at going into the Battle of Hoth were they were on a timetable. One, they knew that their reconnaissance droid had been discovered, so that they knew the rebellion knew they were coming in, that the rebellion would be evacuating. So they didn't have time to scout. They didn't have time to prepare the battlefield or to deny any assets or anything. All they could do was get in there as fast as they could with as much as they could and try to beat it. So once they got there, they did their reconnaissance as best they could from space, which saw the shield generators, which everyone knows is the big focal point of that battle.
Yeah.
So they had to get the ATs across the battlefield to the shield generators, destroy them so they could move in all their other ground forces and aerial strikes. And you'll notice in the Battle of the Hoth, how far out did the Empire's touch down?
Oh, really far. Like,
As compared to Umbara.
yeah.
Yeah, like the AT-AT walkers are gigantic, but they still need like these
And then
long-range
Oh, yeah.
binoculars to even see them.
Yeah.
And they set down and under no fire in crappy weather conditions because it's hot and it's always crappy there.
Oh, yeah.
And then they formed up and then they moved forward in that juggernaut style of having the heavy armor and the heavy armored advantage. So they used their steamroller type technique, for lack of a better word, to roll over the lighter forces because they knew that they had a cornered enemy that was going to try to escape. So there really wasn't a lot of other options without me being able to examine a realistic battle and trying to find like realistic layout stuff of.
I mean, but you've already
Star Wars is difficult.
what you've already given us is brilliant, though.
Right?
Like
I was
it
like,
kind of
whoa.
counters the argument that those articles are making. Like it was a pressed, like their hand was forced, and the other thing
They
was
did their best.
yeah, and the other thing was they mentioned that there was a mistake one of the generals made where they came out of hyperspace too close to the system. Like
Right, because there was some like debate among the Republic forces of whether or not that probe droid was really Imperial because it self-destructed and it didn't leave much evidence behind.
I mean, Han does say it's like it's a good bet the Empire knows we're here. So they could have started, but the shield getting projected was done because they're like, oh, they're here, get the shield up. Versus they could have done a micro jump to sneak up. Like there's all kinds of tactics that not Ozzel. I can't think of the admiral's name now.
You can do it. Come on.
No, I can't. I'm not thinking of it.
I know Piet is the one that replaces him.
Yeah, Piet replaces him. And General Veers is my favorite one. But anyway,
Oh yes.
but yeah, it's like there were a couple of like small like steps that plot armor that prevented them from winning. So I like what I really like what Nathan just said. Like it really wasn't like a horrible failure on like their planning end. It was just a couple of little hiccups.
Which can really happen.
Yeah.
Those little hiccups matter.
No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. That's one of the first things you learn with planning things in the military. Is nothing, no matter how good you plan something. Actually, they tell you if your plan is going perfectly, you're walking into a trap. You're about to get blown up, shot in the head, a giant net dropped on you, or battering to the back of the head or something. If it's going that well, you're about to get messed up.
Yeah.
Nothing goes that well.
That's interesting.
So,
okay.
I guess it's
yeah, I
kinda
mean,
like
really,
life too,
it
though.
was a win for the Empire. They took out how many rebellion troops and did how much damage. They lost their base, and
Yeah,
they were in the rebellion has only been in worse shape since the end of Last Jedi, I think.
I mean, yeah. And those were intentionally parallel storylines. So,
Yep.
But yeah. So is that like we've been talking a lot about how the Jedi did not do a good job with leading the. I mean, they didn't.
Well, they were handed something that wasn't their job.
I'm not saying.
I'm not defending them at all. I'm not defending them at all. I'm just throwing that one out
there.
there.
There was a lot of bad that was done. Is there like in the movies? Was there any example of like an intelligent like tactical choice that was made by the Jedi? Like Obi-Wan is like one of the best Jedis around, and like they talk about General Kenobi all the time. Like, is there anything that
He's the
he's
peacemaker, the
saving
negotiator.
yeah, he's
right?
a negotiator. Like he does.
If I can go way back, if you remember those short animated series that came out with the
hell
prequel,
yeah.
You
Samurai
remember
Jack. Yeah, the Samurai Jack animator.
If you recall, there was an episode where it was in a city, and they showed it had that mercenary, that bounty hunter with like the worm body with the armor.
Oh, right.
And the bike.
Yeah.
Bike. And General Kenobi was fighting with him and his biker guys, but then he had sent a group of what we now know are commandos, because he had the guy with the two pistols and the commas, and they snuck into the city, and they were taking out, I want to say, a massive artillery piece or something.
Yeah.
And then also, General Kenobi does something similar in Revenge of the Sith General Grievous, right?
Yeah.
He can chew up clone troopers like nobody's business.
Well, yeah.
So General Kenobi makes the decision to have his troops maintain the battle plan that they were using in Revenge of the Sith in that battle, and then he goes on his own to take on General Grievous because he knows sending clone troopers at General Grievous for any decent Sith type. I know Grievous isn't technically a Sith, but,
but like
trained by a Sith.
if there was Ventress or something like that,
or Maul or Savage, any of those, they're just gonna mow through clone troopers. So he goes himself to take him out,
I guess that's a
which
pretty
is intelligent.
bold move on that part when you think about it.
I mean, yeah, that is actually a really good idea. I'll go against the guy with the lightsaber, so you guys can take out the droids.
Right. There's not a lot. Unfortunately, the movies don't have a lot of the battles, like military level battles, to choose from. So I can't really think of a lot of good smart moves by the Jedis as commanders. If you read the Karen Traviss novels, I can tell you that there are some generals in there that do the smartest thing a military officer can do, which is to listen to their experienced soldiers. That's one of the first things they teach new officers in the military is you got to listen to your experts, because there's enlisted troops, and as you go up in rank, you become what's called an NCO eventually, non-commissioned officer, which starts generally E5 sergeant, and it's E5 up through E9, which are your NCO, your non-com ranks. So that's leadership positions, but not an officer. And then officers start at like 01 and move up. And you can come into the military with a college degree and have no actual military experience, and then you're an officer, and you're technically in charge. You're higher ranking technically than the highest ranking non-commissioned officer in the military. That doesn't really work in the real world. It doesn't quite fly. It's on paper, but they tell you when you're brand new as an officer, you should listen to your NCOs and your experts. And the Jedis in the novels, from the Karen Traviss novels, that do the best, that perform the best, have the respect for their troops and everything, are the ones that do listen more to their troops than just doing whatever they think is best at any given moment without any military experience.
I like that. That's cool. I actually have to cut us off. We've been talking for over half an hour now. So that's incredible. So
cool.
now we go to the final segment. We go to plus 10 XP.
Yeah.
This is where you're done geeking out. I know we've been having a lot of back and forth, but now this is where we get to ask pretty much any question we want about the clones, anything like that, I guess. So if you guys don't have anything specific,
wow, just assuming.
Yeah, no, a lot of my questions are about kind of like the storyline specific things that I've
please.
Oh, there are things like back when the original Battlefront 2 was canon, I remember they had that storyline where the cloning facilities on Kamino got kind of hijacked by a rebellious force, and they ended up going up against each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's in the Karen Traviss novels. It's worth reading.
He's making these novels sound really, really good.
I mean, from what I've read so far, they're very good.
Go on, sorry.
You know, I didn't really have a question on the end of that. I just remember thinking it was one of the most interesting parts of it that I had come across.
I mean, there's been nothing canonical that's actually said that didn't happen yet, because
they talk about one of the squads that was there, kind of leading the Republic side of that, because there's two kind of battles of Kamino. There's the one where the clones rebel after the Empire takes over.
Right.
Yep.
And there's another one where the Separatists attack Kamino during the war and try to, essentially capture cloning stuff so they can clone their own troops.
Well, no, they wanted to take the DNA sample so they couldn't make any more clones. They didn't want to make their own. They just wanted to take away the sample so that they literally couldn't make any more, because Jango Fett was dead at that point.
Yeah.
And Boba Fett was blown to the wind, so they literally were going to take away their ability to make clones.
But there's a great part in the book where some of the commandos that were on Kamino when that attack happened, were some of the more main storyline commandos were asking about, like, what were you going to do if things went wrong during that battle? And they're like, we were ready to put down all the clones that were, physically 5-6 years old, as opposed to letting the Separatists capture them. So they get into some of that real heavy wartime emotional stuff in the book.
Yeah, just kind of the numbers in one ledger or the other.
That's incredible.
Dealing with deserters, you get some deserters of the GAR from the clone ranks in the books too that they talk about, and that gets interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they go into that in the TV, like you said, the TV show too, and it's always interesting when they do that kind of thing. So yeah, did you have anything, Kira?
I actually do.
Bill Murray.
It doesn't have to do with Star Wars, but so I'm a big Band of Brothers fan, and I just think it's beautiful. I think it's cool. So my question is, do you specifically have like a movie or a series or something that like really gets the Army how you saw it, like something that would give an outsider the ability to kind of see what it really is as like without actually being there.
So realistic military experience
something
from a
that's
movie or
good,
series. For training purposes, you can't beat Full Metal Jacket.
So like for boot camp and stuff like that.
Right, if you want to talk about boot camp style.
Okay.
And it was more brutal back then. Obviously, they hit you more. But Full Metal Jacket definitely for the training. Honestly, as far as the soldiers get along, really the novels that I've been talking about. Not to sound like a broken record, and no, Karen Travis doesn't pay me. But it's what really draw me. It's one of those things where when you experience something new and you get a little thing that pulls you in, kind of, and then it just grows from there. Was the way they interact with each other as brothers or Nervads, as in Mandalorian. I know how it looks in the book. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but there's a lot of Mandalorian, the language in there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. Trying to think of other ones that things I've seen recently that were accurate as far as movies. There's a lot. There's like pieces.
It's never
in different things. Like Saving Private Ryan had some great parts with the interaction with each other, what it was like, how the people treat each other. Platoon is a pretty good one.
Platoon. Okay.
Hamburger Hill. Hamburger Hill is another one if you haven't seen. Hamburger Hill is a great one.
Okay.
For the way, for what it's like, just what it's like. Also, shockingly enough, Red versus Blue.
Really?
Red versus
Really?
Blue. Yes.
The first episode of Red versus Blue, when I saw that, and they're sitting there, and the one dude's got the sniper rifle, and the other guy's like, "Why are we here?" And the dude with the sniper rifle starts going all existential on him, and the other guy's like, "No, why are we in this fucking canyon where the only reason we're here is the other team has a base over there?" That is so real life military. It blows my mind. I have that whole box set on DVD of the first 5 seasons.
That's funny.
It got weird when they started time traveling. But the way that they talk to each other, the Sarge in that show, who's amazing.
Yeah, he's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
He's done so well though. It's all over the top, obviously, but the way that there's always the donut in the unit, the one guy who's kind of dumb and everyone rags on, but he's like your little brother that you still take care of.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll punch him in the face because he looks at you funny, but you'll also take care of him because he's your donut, That's honestly, for the campy side, very accurate.
I never would have expected you to say that.
He's your donut.
Like I'm still kind of reeling. I never would have expected you to say Red versus Blue.
That's awesome. That's totally an awesome answer.
I'm sorry. I haven't heard her. I haven't been able to hear Bill very well, so I think I've been talking over her a little.
Oh, sorry.
Was she saying something? Oh, I was going to say, I was shocked when I looked into the Rooster Teeth guys and found out that none of them had military background. I don't know if maybe one of them had a dad or mom in the military, but they get the interactions perfectly. It's a unique kind of sibling relationship that you get with your brothers and sisters in arms.
That's so interesting.
That is crazy. I want to go rewatch some more Red versus Blue.
Now I want to go watch it. Yeah.
First season, the best by far.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Unfortunately, we're at time. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Nathan. This was a ton of fun.
Really.
So I feel like I leveled up today with the GXP I got.
Oh, totally.
So.
I learned a lot, and I'm reading a book.
Yeah,
I have a book I got to read.
Read a book.
Like 6 of them, I think.
Oh, I got 6 I got to read.
Before really quickly, is the first one Hard Contact?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Hard Contact, 000, True Colors, but then I think it's Order 66 and then 501st because it actually goes into after the war ends a little bit.
Oh my gosh, I need to read these.
Karen Scott? Is that the
What was the name?
Karen Travis.
Karen Travis.
Karen Travis.
I have the book with me actually.
Okay,
so
cool.
I can show it to you. So anyway, I've been trying to say goodbye. I'll try it again. Thank you again, Nathan. As always, I'm Peter the Geek.
I am #KillJosh.
Bill Murray.
All right. Thank you guys again, and we'll see you at the next level. Thank you so much again, Nathan.
That was fun.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our show. If you liked Geek XP, help us out by becoming a contributor on our Patreon. We have bonus content, raffles, and more at patreon.com/yourgeekxp. Geek XP is recorded live at Face Off Unlimited headquarters in Astoria, Queens, and was edited by Peter Hargarden. Executive producers are Joe Tex, Jay Painter, and Eric Robinson. FOU Studios is a property of Face Off Unlimited LLC. I'm Peter Hargarden, the senior producer of podcasts here, and on behalf of everyone who worked on the show, we'd like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Subscribe to catch all of our other podcasts here on the FOU Studios Podcast Network. To connect with the geeks, follow us at YourGeekXP on Facebook and Twitter. To learn more about FOU, connect with us via social media at FOU Studios and visit us at FOUstudios.com. Boom!